With the GPUs seemingly being difficult to come by at a reasonable price, I am very happy that I was able to find a GPU in stock at a price I was willing to pay. Here are the reasons I decided upon the GeForce RTX 5070. MSRP card. The RTX 5070 was the first current gen GPU that I was able to find at MSRP in a price range that I am comfortable with. Last generation, I got an RTX 4070, which was $600 at launch, so this is $50 cheaper than I paid last time. I ended up selling my RTX 4070 for around $550 several months ago, so the upgrade cost was not much at all. Basically just the cost of tax in my area, which amounts to around $40. Not bad for around a 20% performance increase. There were some other cards that I considered buying, but they were never really in stock for me to purchase at MSRP, and I didn't feel like driving to my nearest micro center to wait in line for hours for a chance to get an MSRP GPU like I did with the RTX 3060 Ti back in the great GPU drought of 2021. Design and efficiency. I like the design of the Founders Edition GPU. Last generation, the RTX 4070 Founders Edition went quite well with my setup, and I recently picked up a 12-volt high power cable for my power supply that enhances the cable management of my machine. The Founders Edition GPU also tends to hold their value better on the used market for when I make my next upgrade. The only negative of the Founders Edition I found in reviews is that this generation it tends to run a bit hotter. That seems to be due to the increased TDP, as the 4070 was only a 200 watt card and the 5070 has increased to 250 watts. But the cooler remains about the same size. Still, the temperatures in reviews were all well within safe levels, so it's not something I'm too concerned about. And there are also ways you can reduce temperatures, like with undervolting or setting power limits. I like using efficient components that do not produce a lot of heat in my room, so I really like that the power consumption is pretty low, and the RTX 5070 is among the most efficient GPUs to ever be released. It should go nicely with my 600 watt fanless power supply. It will be interesting to see how much power my total setup uses in games. Doom the Dark Ages bundle. This is a game that I was interested in, and this is something that made getting this card even more enticing. Doom the Dark Ages Premium Edition is a $99 value, which is a nice bonus. And it will be great to see how the 12GB card handles this game in 1440p using the latest version of DLSS 4. I was already interested in this game, so for me, it makes the cost of the GPU seem like it was a little bit less, and I already felt like I got a good deal at the MSRP price point. If you subtract the $99 value of Doom the Dark Ages Premium Edition from the $549 MSRP, you end up at $450. Which is an amazing deal for the RTX 5070. Even if you value the game at only $50, that would bring the GPU cost to only $500. This is still a great deal in my opinion. 1440p gaming. For the past several months, I've been using integrated graphics. My integrated graphics is the one found in Arrow Lake, which is pretty potent for an integrated graphics solution, delivering around PS4 level visuals in games, and in some cases even beating the PS4 Pro. That is great for an integrated graphics solution, but there are some games that it just can't play very well. I will now have the ability to play a wider range of games thanks to having a far more powerful discrete GPU. Since I game on a 240Hz 1440p OLED monitor, I care mostly about results at 1440p, and at 2560 by 1440, the RTX 5070 seems to perform quite well, being 5% faster than RTX 4070 Super and just a few percent behind the RTX 3090 Ti and RTX 4070 Ti. But with an overclock, I have no doubt I can exceed 3090 Ti and 4070 Ti performance on average. Versus my prior GPU, this is a 22% increase when comparing stock versus stock. But RTX 50 series seem to overclock a bit better than 40 series, so my final result will likely be even bigger than a 22% increase. The most popular current-gen GPU. Steam's latest hardware survey shows that the RTX 5070 is already the fastest selling current-gen GPU. The only current-gen GPUs to make the list so far are the RTX 5070, RTX 5070 Ti, and RTX 5080. The RTX 5070 has been available for the least amount of time, and is already tied with the RTX 5080 for being the most popular current-gen GPU. The RTX 5070, which has only been available for 2 months, has a higher percentage of GPUs on the survey than some last-generation GPUs that were released 2 years ago. I like to get GPUs that are some of the most popular because I think that it helps with my view counts. Fear of price increases. Microsoft recently increased the cost of several items for their Xbox platform, including the cost of consoles, controllers, games, and accessories. These GPUs are made at the same factories as Xbox consoles, so I feel good having paid just the original MSRP of the card in the event that prices increase like they did for the Xbox. An Xbox Series X with a disk drive now has an MSRP of $599, which is kind of insane if you think about it. For consoles like PS5 and Xbox Series X, the specs haven't improved, yet the price increased this generation. Digital Foundry found that the performance of current-gen consoles is around that of the RTX 4060. Look at this graph. At launch, the $500 current-gen consoles were only around 25% slower than the $500 RTX 3070. Fast forward to today, and the $600 MSRP Xbox Series X now only has around half the GPU performance of the RTX 5070. Xbox has increased in price, but the gaming performance remains the same. PC GPUs have improved their value by a lot since 2020, but the same cannot be said about consoles. The value of the consoles has decreased. On the PC, the situation is much better. Price performance improved several times in the 70 series since the current-gen consoles launched over the course of 4.5 years. From the 3070 at $499, the 5070 has around 56% more performance, but the MSRP only increased by 10%. Seeing as some consoles have increased in price by 20% with no performance increase, I figured it was a good idea to order when I did. This is the first generation where consoles increased in price, and the Xbox Series X will be a 5-year-old console later this year. If Microsoft is raising the price of Xbox, there is a chance prices of other items made in those same factories could also increase. Instead of waiting to find out, I went ahead and ordered a GPU at MSRP when I had the chance. Overclocking capabilities. TechPowerUp got an overclock of around 13% on their unit. I will be happy if I end up with an extra 10% of performance. At stock, the unit is already around 20% faster than the last discrete GPU. So, if I end up at 30% faster than 4070 with an overclock, that would be a pretty meaningful increase. Overclocking is one thing I love to do whenever I get a new GPU, so I can't wait to see how much more performance I can squeeze out of it. Some reviews are showing this card can reach a whopping 3.1 GHz. This GPU also has the ability to be undervolted. I typically combine undervolting with overclocking in order to improve performance while keeping power consumption down. I will post my results when I hopefully receive the card in a few days. 12GB GDDR7. GDDR7 is the latest memory standard, which is a bit faster than GDDR6. 16 to 18 gigabytes would have been better, but as someone who games at 1440p and upgrades their GPUs every generation, I think that I will be just fine with 12GB G7 for the next several years. It is the same capacity as the RTX 4070 I had before, but the memory bandwidth is increased by a third, which could help in certain scenarios. I remember 8GB VRAM becoming a big deal in online discussions toward the latter half of me having a 3060 Ti, but by the time I sold it, I never had an issue with 8GB, but that was back in 2021 to early 2023. and I generally stick to older games with the occasional new release. The current gen consoles will likely still be around for another 3 years before next generation arrives. I hear people arguing online that next gen consoles will have a lot more VRAM, and that may be true, but by the time next gen consoles arrive, I'll likely already have or will be about to upgrade to my next GPU. And next gen GPUs likely will have more VRAM than the current generation. There is also talk that RTX 50 series might have a super line of cards with increased VRAM. I'd still rather have this GPU today to put it to use right now than wait for a card with more VRAM which may or may not come later this year. Frame generation technologies. As someone who has a 240Hz 1440p OLED monitor, I really wanted to try out multi-frame generation and smooth motion. There are many games with frame rate caps of 60 to 120 frames per second, which could benefit greatly from smooth motion. I am also looking forward to try out 3x and 4x multi-frame generation. I really want to see how well the 12GB frame buffer can handle this feature at 1440p. In the end, I am very happy to get another MSRP card. Every generation, since the GTX 900 series, I have always managed to purchase an MSRP card, but had trouble ordering at launch twice. For the 50 series, I was able to order the 5070 Founders Edition 2 months after launch, and I'm glad I waited 2 months to order since it came with Doom the Dark Ages, which makes me feel like I got an even better deal. I've been using Intel Arrow Lake integrated graphics for the past 5 months or so, and the integrated graphics performance are the best I've ever seen for an integrated GPU. But a discrete GPU like the RTX 5070 is much faster, so this is going to feel like a massive upgrade to what I've become accustomed to for the past several months. I also can't wait to check out various frame generation technologies that should allow me to get closer to maxing out the 240Hz of my monitor. Overclocking and undervolting MSRP GPUs has worked out quite well for me in the past, so I can't wait to find out how well this GPU overclocks for me. I look forward to seeing how the 12GB frame buffer handles gaming on my 240Hz 1440p OLED monitor. Thanks for watching.